Mr. Jain, Pathways has been involved with EdTech for a long while now. What has been your experience with it, and what are some of the features which are essential for the success of a blended classroom?
Thank you. Well, it's always very hard to be on a panel which is just before lunch or just after the lunch. But I must say that, I'm amazed to see the attentiveness of the audience here. So thank you very much for listening to all of us. Coming to technology and blended classroom and pathways, whatever our learnings have been, I would like to first, start by saying that not now, but little while earlier, there was always a misnomer about technology. There is a difference between IT learning and IT-enabled learning. IT education is different, and how you leverage technology for doing learning inside a classroom is very, very different. Pathways has always had focus on the latter, and that's how when we started our first campus in 2003, I think there were some case studies done on that we were the first campus in the world which had radio connectivity both internally and externally in a school campus back then when the Wi-Fi devices didn't used to come. So, and technology is always a means and not an end. And our experience with that has been very, very progressive. I fully agree with Mrs. Krishnan, Mr. N. Gupta that blended learning always existed. But here we are talking about blended learning in context of technology, right? Otherwise, there are, of course, many different ways in which the learning happens inside a classroom. And there again, something, so, some wise people say that never waste a good crisis. And there cannot be a better crisis than what COVID was, right? And what amazes me is that as soon as the pandemic happened and the lockdown happened and all of us switched to online mode to interact with each other, even to socialize or to learn or to do our business or work and whatever, to my knowledge, each and every platform that we used for this, everything existed before. It's not that any new platform was found. It's just that there's a human, we are averse to experimenting new things, right? But it taught us. What it did, which is good for education, is globally there's a research and there's a survey that resistance to use of technology in educational institutions doesn't come from students, it comes from adults, globally. And what COVID has overcome is that the fear of using technology in the adults has gone. And when that has happened, how do we leverage it more? As Mrs. Krishnan very rightly said, we have such a diverse set of learners all over India, and every child has a right to learn, right? And there, I think there are enormous ways in which we can use technology. I will just say one last thing in this particular question is that, but there's one myth which I feel is a myth, which sometimes we talk about because as humans we have a tendency of swinging the pendulum from one end all the way to the other end, all the time. When we talk about online schools, we have to be very aware about the age group that we are dealing with. Education is different at different age groups. At the age of K to 12, we are in the process of nurturing human beings, right? And we're not creating robots. We just don't have to fill information inside them. They learn as much inside a classroom as they learn outside the classroom by falling down on a playfield or lending a helping hand to a friend or getting into a quarrel with somebody, right? All that is also important for them to grow up. So I don't think online schooling is a solution or future. Having said that, once the normal thing which now is expected is happening, switching totally to offline will also be wasting a crisis because end of the day, we have to prepare this generation now to get accustomed to a virtual work environment. And the onus of that also lies in schools. So for example, in Pathway schools, we have designated that even in a normal scenario, we will designate few days in a year as learn from home days, where asynchronous work happens. They can come to school, but they won't come to school, and we'll do online teaching.
Mr. Chatterjee, in a country like India with its economic, cultural, and geographical diversity as well, how do we equip our teachers to adapt to this new normal? And what are the sort of stumbling blocks for teachers in blended learning?
Thanks for asking this question. I think my view would be slightly different from the eminent practitioners here. So, but thankfully, as an organization, we have always believed in working with teachers. You know, if I have to answer your question, anything which is blended, hybrid, or which, if technology is that blend, one needs to see that time on task, that's one thing which if technology can reduce. You know, if things, when a teacher struggles or faces in terms of setting up something or teaching something which is repetitive in nature, can that be taken care of technology? You know, that is one area you will find faster adoption by teachers, right? Second is, the most important part is engagement in the classroom. Now, you have the best of devices, the infrastructure. If your content is passive, and if it does not give the agency of teaching to the teacher, then again, the engagement quotient will be very, very low, and the ultimate outcome will not be met. So end of the day, that will drop out, that adoption will drop out. So when you design, you'll have to design for that, and if you design well, teachers will adopt. The third thing which comes to my mind during COVID and all that has been accelerated, of course, teachers has been pushed to use technology and they have done a fabulous job in that. But there is a disconnect when you talk about after school learning. And due to survival, due to advertisement, due to various kind of things we were trying out, there were so many apps and EdTech and this coming into the picture, and children have used for some time, then it dropped off, you know, you never know. But what we always realize that whatever the child is doing after school, if it is evaluated by the teachers and then recommended to the child, and if whatever she is doing after school, if it comes back to the teachers and the school in the forms of analytics and insights, then the teacher can take intelligent teaching decisions, which eventually a slightly futuristic thing would be, which will help Ms. Krishnan to take decisions, which is called adaptive sectioning. The sectioning which is not based on rigid rules, but on learning gaps, for example. If a cohort of child is deficient in certain learning aspect, then the sectioning for the day can be done through that. Everything is possible through technology. So we'll have to solve problem for the teachers and the schools at every step of the way.